The first item I passed out, Madam Mayor, members of the council, the first item I passed out was the scope of recall in all of section 16, section 6. And the last sentence of the scope of the recall says, a recall of an elected city official must not be within 6 months before or after the regular municipal election of the officer, or within 6 months after a recall election for such officer's recall. Mr. Hugg's memo that Mr. Miller is making reference to, in detail, I'm going to read so that there's no question about it, and I've passed out some copies and furnished a copy to the press. The Texas Election Code at 41.001A2 requires our election to be held on May 7th since 2016, since it does not fall in any of the exceptions set out in the Texas Election Code at 41.001B. The Texas Election Code at 3005C states that all special measures, such as a recall, must be on the ballot by the 78th day before the election day. For the May 7th special election, this falls on February 19th, 2016. The only exception to this deadline as carved out by the election code would be for another election to fill a vacancy, but that only applies to the ordering of the election and placement on the ballot for a specific vacant position, not placement of any item on the ballot just because a vacancy is also to be filled by special election on the same May 7th, 2016 date. From the Texas Secretary of State's election calendar, note new law, Senate Bill 1703, 2015 amended the ordering deadline for a general election or special measure election to the 78th day before the election day. If the petition is submitted Monday, January 25th, as it has been, as I understand it, the City Secretary has 10 business days in which to verify the signatures on the petition. This would work out to be Monday, February 8th, 2016, per 604 of the Charter. The City Secretary must then submit the verified petition to the City Council at the next regular City Council meeting, which would be Thursday, February 11th, 2016. Again, section 604 of the Charter. At that meeting, the City Council must set a hearing date to be held no more than 5 business days later, which if extended to the maximum will be February 18th, 2016. Section 605 again, 604 of the Charter. The officials sought to be recalled then have 10 business days from the date of the hearing to determine if they desire to resign or to go for an election, which would be March 3rd, 2016, again citing section 6.05 of the Charter. And G, should they choose not to resign, then an election would be ordered at the next regular scheduled City Council meeting. That would be the second Thursday in March, being March 10th, 2016, again relying on section 602 of the Charter. With all these offices, the subject of the recall petition having their terms up in November, the recall petition is now a moot issue pursuant to state law and the Charter. Even if it is desired to be placed on the ballot when the seats are up for election for appearance purposes, that would be forbidden by 601 of the Charter, which states a recall of elected city officials must not be within 6 months before or after the regular municipal election of the officer, or within 6 months after a recall election for such officer's recall. The Charter mandates that a council person may place the items pertaining to recall petition on the City Council agenda. The timeline is set out above to show that it will not be placed on the May ballot due to the Charter and state law provisions. Council should take no action due to the controlling law that supersedes the agenda item. Even if the petition has been submitted on Friday, January 22nd, which was discussed earlier, and the City Secretary was able to verify all the signatures in time for Thursday's meeting, following the Charter timelines, the hearing would be held on February 4, 2016. The officers would have until February 18th, 2016 to decide if they wanted to resign or face the election. And then the next regular meeting where the election would be ordered would be February 25th, 2016, being the fourth Thursday. This is still past the February 19th deadline for special measures to be placed on the ballot. In In the matter before the council, the petition was submitted on Monday, January 25th, 2016, and the memo is so premised. Question?
As I said, no action.
No action.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, there's a motion on the floor, point of order.
If there is no action,
Is there a second on the motion?
no, sir.
Have you called for a second?
No.
Mr. Rosenberg, in this case, do I need to call for a second? Since
You
there's
have
no action?
So far, and there's no reason to call for it.
Thank you so much.
Make your rules up as you go.
No, that's what the state says.
No, it doesn't say that.
Follow the charter when you want.
Point of order. Lou, that doesn't necessarily say that that a special election cannot be called, correct?
It says right here, the recall, well, I've read it.
But it does not state that a
Doesn't
special
include
election
that.
cannot be called, correct?
My recommendation is based on what I just read to you.
But that's not the question that I'm asking you. It does not state that a special election cannot be,
There wasn't a second.
that a special election cannot be called, correct?
Let's move on.
For the reasons I stated, it cannot be called tonight.
There was no second, there's no
Hey,
action.
guys,
Please sit down.
Oh, boy.
The next item,
Did we get citizen comments on
Yes.
no,
Yes.
no, there's no action.
no, a second.
There is
There was
citizen
second?
input. There's citizen input in every single.
There is no action.
But
In
you allow
every
input.
agenda item, there's citizens input.
After a second.
There was no second. So,
Mr. Rosenberg, can you allow for citizens input, yes or no?
No.
the answer is no.
Let's move on.
Okay, item I. On this one, it's a CNA to repeal a first amended ordinance number 2015-033. And, Madam Secretary, is this the one where part of it was
Officer.
left off?
Excuse me, can you please remove Ms. Rodriguez?
No.
No, I'll leave on my own, because this is disturbing
Okay,
to
thank
see.
you.
No problem. This is pathetic, uneducated. It's very disturbing. Ridiculous. People do not know what
I was gonna rely
a
on the newspaper, but you guys did the job.
Well, those who are disturbed, you may step out. Thank you.
I'll say, you're disturbing.
Thank you.
Ms. Monica, thank you, officer. On this one, this is the one that, part of it was left out.
I don't think they brought it up, right? It's not, I don't think so.
Is to receive the,
There's no, it doesn't talk about receiving the petitions. It's just a consideration and action to repeal First Amendment Ordinance number 2015-033, and it's sponsored by me.
okay?
Now, I will, as I go on, I hold in my hand approximately 125 signed petitions for just that, based on the referendum piece of provision of the city charter. Based upon the new effective date of this ordinance being February 6th, there is more time for those signatures to be obtained. And I also understand that there's quite a few more signatures that have not been turned into. And just as these citizens have been able to put together a petition for recall that this council took no action on, I am certain that these citizens will have 500 valid signatures based upon our ministers who have spoken to this and who are in support of this. I see Pastor Mike from First Baptist Church. I see Pastor Conrad from the First Lutheran Church. Do we have any other ministers with us this evening? And I know that Ms. Uhas has been aggressively pursuing signatures as other people have pursued signatures. This council needs to realize that should come February 5th, if in fact 500 signatures are presented to this city, this ordinance cannot go into effect. I can assure you that you will see 500 signatures on or before February 5th for the repeal of that ordinance. Hence the sponsoring of this item. Instead of continuing to work against the will of the people, let's be proactive and responsive to these people and repeal this ordinance now. Therefore, I move to repeal First Amendment Ordinance number 2015-033 tonight.
Mr. Rosenberg, since we don't have the petition with 500, is there no action on this one?
Well, this is just a simple motion, and if there's no second, then that's the end of it.
Okay.
Can you, give us information if the 500 signatures are provided, can it be put on the ballot? Or does it appeal the ordinance right then and there?
Kills it right then and there until it's put on the ballot.
Okay.
So, and since it will be after the 25th, as Mr. Hug said, the soonest it could be put on the ballot would be November.
So, Mr. Rosenberg, do we need to take action on
Well,
this?
if there's no second to the motion.
Right.
Well, the motion's on the floor. You need to, as presider, ask if there's a second.
Is there a second?
Mr. Rosenberg, we and I spoke before the meeting, and I had some questions regarding repealing the ordinance and the petition. You offered to me that if there is a petition, that the business, I'm sorry? If a petition is offered, that means proponents of the 8 liners can also submit a petition, and we'll be back where we were in square one, where there would be no regulation at all.
Well, I mean, in theory, that's.
No, that's not true, because the first ordinance is in
The
place.
will of the people.
First ordinance is
The first ordinance is in place. The referendum ordinance, the referendum petition must be presented to the city before the effective date, according to the referendum provision of the city charter. So a referendum petition could not be presented on the existing ordinance. If the proponents for the game rooms came to the city with initiative, that item would have to go on the ballot. And again, the soonest that could occur would be November.
Mr. Rosenberg, I'd like to go back to the fact that there was no second, so the motion died.
Motion dies, matters
Thank you, that was on item I. Item J, CNA 2, at the request of the citizens of Floresville, repeal First Amendment Ordinance number 2015-033.
That's a duplicate item.
Yep. So, no action on that one because it's a
No action.
duplicate. K, to repeal directive to city manager to suspend enforcement of penalty provisions on existing locations subject to ordinance 2015-033.
Well, just as a matter of futility, I'll go through the motions, or the process here is to clear what this was going to turn out to be. The media reported it long before this meeting actually ever occurred. But I make the motion to repeal council directive, which I believe is in violation of the city charter, to the city manager to suspend enforcement of penalty provisions on existing locations subject to ordinance 2015-033.
Do I have a second? Motion dies for lack of second. Item L. A CNA to extend hiring freeze implemented during fiscal year 2015-16 budget cycle to the vacant position of special controller / financial advisor.
Mayor,
Yes.
this is only for reporting purposes. The position, if that's what you're talking about, which
Yes.
was USDA
Yes.
project accountant,
Yes.
it needs to be corrected on the line item because her position was not special controller finance advisor. If we report these to USDA, and then we will not get refunded or reimbursed for that position.
So what was the title?
The title was USDA project accountant.
USDA
And the USDA project accountant, and that was also in her contract, as when she was contracted for her services.
And as an employee, what was her title?
The same.
With that correction, Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion to put a hiring freeze on that position, the vacant position of USDA project manager,
Accountant.
accountant.
Can that be done, Lou, with the position listed wrong incorrectly? I mean, it's not,
Yeah, point of order, it's to extend the hiring freeze. I didn't know we had a hiring freeze.
sorry?
The agenda item is to extend the hiring freeze. I didn't know that there was, city manager, do we have a hiring freeze in place?
Councilman, I believe that during the budget workshop, it was discussed. There was no official action taken, but it was discussed to have a hiring freeze, but not anything specific to this position. This is a brand-new position in the budget for this fiscal year. So this is the first time that this position appeared in the budget.
Okay, so are we talking about the project accountant, or are we talking about this special comptroller? She just told us it's a different, it's not
Well,
the right
the
person.
special comptroller, this is a item that was sponsored by the mayor, so I didn't.
Special
There is no
It's
such
back.
item.
There is none, so
The
the title is
USDA
wrong.
project accountant.
But it was.
She still there?
She
She resigned.
So that's what I'm saying, we're not even, I mean, it wasn't the correct position posted, so we're,
And you're talking about extending a hiring freeze. The whole agenda item doesn't make any sense.
yeah.
I don't think any action can be taken.
This is funded by USDA, not by general fund.
This one here, Senor,
The question is, if there's no hiring
it's
freeze,
the same one as,
how can we extend it?
As the city manager said, it was discussed in the budget workshop.
I
There
understand
wasn't a
that.
formal vote taken, but the common knowledge was that there was a hiring freeze.
But the thing is, Mr. Tejada, if it's, the position was filled, and they just resigned, so there wasn't a hiring freeze because we hired somebody.
Yes.
So that's just, we can't extend a hiring freeze if the person was already hired. You know?
And there's three problems with this agenda item. One, there's no hiring freeze currently in place. Two, the position is labeled wrong. Three, it's not city funding. This is coming from USDA funding
For reimbursement.
for reimbursement. So the entire agenda item is flawed.
Yeah, I mean, I understand first trying to say, okay, we're gonna put a hiring freeze on on that position, that we're not gonna hire anybody to replace her, I understand that part, but the way this is written, it's not written correctly. You can't take
Well,
action on that.
I don't believe you can take action on it since there is no hiring freeze to extend.
All right, so, yes, Council.
No,
No, we've got a motion. Rescind his
Recommend, and your USDA commitment has not been accepted or approved yet either.
And not filling that position would jeopardize that approval.
It could jeopardize that approval because there are certain requirements for accountability in the letter of commitments, but that's an April 1 deadline. It's a deadline you can still meet,
Understood.
but the way it's structured with a hiring freeze, which doesn't exist, I think the agenda item is kind of, I'll put it this way, it's unintelligible and probably no action should be taken.
Well, it's a good thing he's having surgery,
Chris Hunt wrote the agenda.
or had surgery.
It's an orthoscopic mistake.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, we have a motion.
There's still a motion.
Yeah, I know, we have a motion. Councilman Tejada?
No second.
Well, I haven't asked for a second. We have a motion.
I mean, if we're gonna put a hiring freeze on a position that doesn't exist, that's fine, but it has no relation to the USDA project account. So we're basically a position that's not currently filled, so we're not talking, this can't be talking about the USDA project account. The way it's written, we're not talking, so, I mean, I understand the motion, but we're not talking about the USDA project accountant who just resigned. This position.
We're not talking about it, no. Okay, so then it's freezing that we won't have anything.
You're freezing something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, we're freezing.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
in a freezer that doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
Councilman Tejada, would you like to second that?
No, I make the motion.
Okay, he made the motion, so I guess I'll ask for a second, based on the agenda item. Do I have a second? No second?
No. Could die.
It dies for one
Okay.
second.
No second. It died. We've had a lot of funerals tonight. Okay. The next one is CNA to form a committee of 2 members of the city council and other entities that may be found necessary to direct and conduct an investigation into the conduct and affairs of the city of Floresville's comptroller's office pursuant to section 3.07 of the charter. I sponsored this one based on information regarding Mrs. Martinez, Helen, who just left the company. She didn't want to. She loved her job, but she left because of specific unprofessional action. So that's why I'm recommending that we look into this. So the idea is to form a committee of 2 members of the city council. Any discussion on this one?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Madam City Manager, do you have Ms. Martinez's resignation?
Yes, sir, she submitted her resignation.
Okay.
And did not give me more than a couple of hours' notice.
Okay, did she give you a basis for her resignation?
She just said it was a hard decision for her to make, but she cannot continue in her capacity.
But it was a voluntary resignation?
Yes,
She
sir.
didn't give you any basis for reason. Did she contact you about any problems?
She did contact me about a problem. I tried to facilitate
Mr.
whatever the issue was, but
Mr. Rosenberg, I think we're talking about
Yeah.
personnel,
Personnel.
No.
and I think that should be in
And
closed
this
session.
one we are.
Okay.
We should go
she
into
submitted her resignation. I accepted it.
Again,
I think we're asking about going executive session, you're speaking
Right,
specifically
right,
about someone's
right.
position.
I wouldn't,
I think the point of the motion, if I understand it, Madam Mayor, is to appoint a committee to conduct the investigation, and that's the way the agenda item is written.
That's correct.
And under E, what your literal reading of the charter is inquire into the conduct of the office, department, or agency of the city and make investigation as to municipal affairs.
I think my question would be, Madam Mayor, is if this, I mean, she said it was a short notice, she just went over the letter, has Ms. Turner and then the HR gone over the matter before we dive into investigation, if they've looked at the matter before? I mean, I don't understand why we're jumping in if they haven't had a chance to review everything.
Well, can we go into executive session for this? So we can reveal other information?
It's a personnel matter, you can do it under that part of the exceptions to the Open Meetings Act, Madam Mayor.
I would move to table.
I so move, Madam Mayor, pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel matters to deliberate an employee.
Point of order, didn't Mr. Miller just move the table? How
No.
can
There was a
another
motion already on
come?
the floor.
Second.
He said his before he said his.
No, sir.
I beg your pardon. He said, I moved the table, and then he started pontificating his.
Is that a order,
Pontificating.
Madam Mayor? Is that a order?
Madam Mayor, was there a second to the table?
No, sir.
And I one of a second.
Sir, can you keep your comments to
May I have a
yourself, please?
second
Are you
to
gonna
the
be escorted
table?
off? Okay. Thank you, sir.
May I have a second to the table?
I just did.
To the
table.
table?
Oh,
No,
no.
to the table. All right, the table failed. Motion failed. May I have another motion?
I so move, Madam Mayor.
to,
pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to discuss personnel matters in executive session.
second,
So you're moving to have an executive session on this matter?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Don't yell at me. It's too late.
Okay, so that takes it in the executive, just.
No, they have to ask for a vote.
Yes, someone asked for a vote.
Oh,
All right, all those in favor of going into executive session on this matter, item M? All those in favor? 3?
I oppose on,
Opposed? 3 to 1.
okay.
Okay. It
Well, this is
is
gonna be
10
going to
o'clock,
closed
motion carries.
This city manager.
Jeff, comment? No. Jeff, comment?
Not at this time.
Is this going to be? Aren't you supposed to get comments after the second? Is this going to be M and then 4 A and B in executive at one time?
No,
No,
sir.
this is
No,
just
we're
the-
coming back.
No, that's one time executive.
This is a separate item.
We'll still be here though.
Okay.